Welcome back to Life and Art with Nicole, and I'm your host, Nicole. I'm excited because today I have Kurimeo with me. Kurimeo is a investigative researcher and has a really great YouTube channel. So we are going to chat about history and all things historical, so stay tuned. Ireland. I was asking you about that connection with the Celts and all
Yeah,
that.
I believe a lot of the people that ended up in the British Isles came out of America anciently. Their stories, a lot of it hints to Holy Land, Egypt, Phoenicians, and all that. And so when we talk about Phoenicians, ancient Egyptians, and the Holy Land, it's all gonna lead back to America. And it does make sense, you know. So when we talk about like the British Isles, I believe a lot of their indigenous tribes, like the Picts and all that, came from certain tribes in America. I'm still working on doing the correlation and the whole history. But like the Irish tales, you know, of their first kings and queens, you know, it's what we've concluded definitely come. It seems to be like the biblical people, even their own stories tell it, you know, possibly Jeremiah and Zedekiah's daughters eventually taking the throne and keeping the line of Judah alive in Ireland and all that, and eventually into England. But a lot of the people from those countries, you know, we always think that it's all pale skinned people that's always been there, and but not. But we found out, you know, with science, you know, anybody can research. Is the first people in the British Isles were dark skinned people. A lot of them had blue and green eyes, you know, and the anthropological books also show it. And you start reading, they describe who the original people are in these lands. And yeah, in general, it's melanated people. And a lot of these people eventually ended up in the Americas in colonial time as colonists, indentured servants, prisoners of war, convicts, conquistadors, you know, and they mixed in with the American Indians in different areas. Um, these are all melanated people, you know, and both groups eventually got tagged as black Negroes. They got misclassified, paper genocide, and some allied with certain tribes and some allied with other tribes, and it wasn't about color back then. You know, a lot of the plantation or farm owners were so-called black folks, and a lot of the so-called pale-skinned people were in the plantations working too. So it wasn't just a color thing. And eventually everybody got, you know, would get their freedom if everything went right and according to their contract. But again, people got stuck in those contracts, and it seemed that as time went on, melanated people got more disfranchised and more stuck in it than the pale-skinned people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really hard thing for people to accept that,
Mhm.
because our current narrative suggests that only pale skinned people were the ones that, had the plantations and were doing these horrible things to their, slaves that could never do anything and never fought back. And
Yeah.
woe to them. And I mean, there's several, I think reasons for that. One is to keep the, the more melanated folk disenfranchised in a mental state, even, because if you keep and this is what gets me so upset or angry about, every year we have a movie about slavery and it's always this woe is me. And I'm not, diminishing the fact that people actually were indentured servants and had, worse off situations, but let's like tell the truth here. It wasn't just, so-called Black people that were in these situations, and to keep this narrative of keep this narrative going keeps us in a sort of disenfranchised state of mind, and keeps us feeling like victims, where we
Yeah.
So when we don't know our history, we don't choose to know our history because I don't want to know anything about my slave ancestors. It just kind of
Yeah.
stops that, you know, that thought process of like, wait, let me actually do a little bit more research, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It has that was their main purpose, you know, to make you not even want to look back, disconnect you from the land, from the history here. Like, you know, you are the founding fathers, you are the American Indians, you know,
Yeah.
that is your history. You are the true Americans, you
Yeah.
know. People come in Ellis Island and, you know, that's early 1900s. Um, and then even if we go with the slave narratives that they came from Africa, supposedly, you're talking about already supposedly being here 400, 500 years, 300 years compared to people who just came from Ellis Island, but they're not being called German American, Ireland, Irish American, you know,
Yeah.
Argentinian American, you know, like everybody, you know, gets to be called an American once they're here for a couple of generations. But, you know, you guys gotta, you know, are being tagged African American. You know, that's all on purpose, like you're saying. You know, they keep just putting it on you. They keep changing your identity as
Yeah.
years go by, and they're not the history, the textbooks, the school system, you know, just endorses it and pushes it. You know, they're just there to like enforce what the I guess the programmers or controllers, you know, want to teach.
Right. It keeps people in it keeps us in a mental slavery. And it also kind of keeps non-melanated people, non-Hebrew people in a mental state, in a mental slavery as well,
Yeah,
because we all at the end of the day, you know, if we really trace our roots back, right? And we all come from what, three, you know, like one family essentially after the flood, post flood, you know, so I mean, I don't know. I'm going with the more like biblical approach, you know. We all come out of Noah, but even Noah was, you know, the same exact story can be found in Japanese lore, it can be found in Celtic lore. So it's like obviously there was something, some kind of cataclysm that happened. One family or group of people survived and then literally, you know, populated the rest of the world. So if we go with that narrative that we're all kind of kin in a sense, you know,
yeah.
we're all related at the end of the
Hmm.
day, and so by preventing even non, you know, this particular bloodline people from knowing the truth, we're doing a disservice to everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, history definitely, like people don't, like you said, they don't care. A lot of people don't care about history, but you know, not knowing who you are, where you're coming from, the biggest lesson is, well, what happens is that we end up repeating everything because we're not learning it. So we're just gonna keep repeating it until we actually wake up and learn from it. That's what history is supposed to teach us, you know. And we know people have manipulated history. We know usually the conquerors write the story. So we definitely, you know, it should be a logical thing that we have to revise history and kind of always think about it and see if, you know, what matches and what's true and what's not, and question things. You know, like we're always still learning. Like, I mean, if you look at the progress of history, the way they tell us, you know, you see that in the 1800s they had limited knowledge, 1700s limited knowledge. We're supposed to be gaining more knowledge as we go, supposedly, right? But
Yeah.
we know that's not linear because we know our ancestors were very advanced. You know,
Yeah.
they can't mimic them what
Yeah.
they did and stuff. So they made it linear, kind of what I'm trying to say. They created the chronology, they made it linear. Let's start this at point zero. And you know, let's say, you know, these are Stone Age people, and let's pretend we invented light and electricity in this time. Let's pretend because the
Yeah.
ancient Egyptians, ancient Babylonian, the India, ancient American, so-called Atlanteans, we had electricity, we had
Yeah.
light, we had our own energy, you
Hmm.
know, all kinds of things. You know, the technology we had is what people consider in the future, you know,
Yeah.
impossible. But you know, that's kind of what I'm saying. You know, they made it all linear, like we're supposed to be more smarter than before.
Yeah, that they try to act like we're more advanced, but really we're
Yeah,
not. We're definitely
yeah,
not as advanced because I mean, even if you look at like back what you know what I'd said earlier about the world's fairs around America and well the world really. But a lot of those world's fairs, included in the world's fairs, with those huge greenhouses. And these greenhouses were, well, one, they had a water source, which means it was like hydroponic, they were, or hydroelectric, I should say. So they were sort of energizing the greenhouse to produce these enormous fruits. I mean, they even wrote about it back then. So we have these enormous greenhouses that were electrically, built somehow with using water. They were lit up, a lot of those old videos of the World's Fairs had electricity, and not the type of electricity we use now. They had really like super advanced type of electricity. And so we look at our, our little, camera phones and our smartphones, and we're like, yeah, we're so advanced because we put a little crystal in a little computer chip and we made it go. It's like these people had they were powering entire, nations with this type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely the World Fair is something to look into for people to, if they don't know about it, because it's hard to explain if you don't know. But they had, all these buildings. They were like definitely doing some exposition of the ancient history of the world. They were, I don't know if they were re-educating the newer people and kind of brainwashing them in these same exposition world fairs, but they were definitely exposing their technology. Like you're saying, light shows, way before supposedly Edison and all these people came out, illuminating, in the electricity and the lighting, the bulbs, these last forever. They don't expire like the ones they make today.
Right, the ones they make today, like you can use them for like 3 months. They go out, and it's like, wait, what? The fact that we even have to pay for electricity is mind-blowing. It's seriously mind-blowing.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. We live in a business kind of society, of commerce. They've turned it into that. And it's not supposed to be about that. Technology is not supposed to be about making somebody rich. Because they got to claim they invented it.
They just found it. They just found it, and we're like, oh, hey, we can enslave the people with this.
Well, they learned about it from the ancient people. And they just, they made it into a business. And like, just like you're saying, walking around and seeing all the signs and just seeing our society, everything's business. That's not how we're supposed to be living.
Right.
On this plane. And there's one thing that's certain, that's change. Change always comes, and empires come and go, and there's epics and ages, and we're just in this little age. We think it's the only age and the best age, and no, it's like we've been more advanced. We've been living. We've lived, where we didn't have colds and stuff. Like it's just we're gonna definitely get back to that, because there's a cycle for everything.
Oh yeah, of course. And it's just like the ages, they go up, they go down, and that actually kind of goes right into everything actually we're talking about, kind of like leads to the next thing I wanted to kind of bring up, which is the giants. And I love your videos that you do with the guy who has the Twitter, and he kind of does the articles on the different giants and stuff that have been found. I can't remember all these people's names, but you know what I'm talking about, these old articles that show that a 9-foot giant was found in someone's backyard. I love that, because in addition to the World's Fairs, a lot of these buildings were gigantic. And you're like, well, wait a second. So these little teeny people, 5'7", 5'8", height people built these huge buildings that look like they're for giants, and then, just for an exposition, and then tore it down. And then not only that, but the type of just everything in general just seems like there were giant people back then that clearly lived. These giant, even these old, churches around the world, these old cathedrals, if you look at the doors, they're huge.
They're huge.
They're huge. And you're like, wait, why would little 5'8", 6 foot people build these enormous doors? And so the reason why I bring this up, though, is because, with the ages, it's cyclical. And at that, back then, people were gigantic. Everything grew gigantic. And now we're at the, as the ages of kind of like, they, kind of crest and then fall. We're at the sort of fallen age where people are little, everyone is sick all the time, like you know?
Yeah, definitely. As like we were talking about earlier, I mean, sick people are more they make businessmen more money than healthy people.
Yeah, sure.
So they're not definitely gonna give us time to heal ourselves. It's the
Yeah,
opposite.
right.
So, when it comes to health issues like the ones we had recently, since when do they care about so much about us so much? I mean, they give us
Mhm.
chemicals in our food, they spray us with things, and
Yep.
so I don't think it's because they really care about our health or
Oh
our
yeah.
lives. So
Yeah, not at all. I mean, if they really cared about us, then yeah, they wouldn't be spraying the skies. They wouldn't be
yeah,
poisoning the water. Like, how long has Flint, Michigan gone with dirty water? Like,
hmm
and people think that, health, they're just going to give us something for our health. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
And everything in our society today does point to them, poisoning our mind, poisoning our air, poisoning our water, poisoning our food, just keeping us in a constant state of fear and panic, which keeps us from wanting to know our history, which keeps us from learning that the things that we're doing now are not necessarily correct. Maybe they
yeah,
might be right for the age. I don't know. But ultimately, this is not how we're supposed to be living. We're supposed to be living in harmony with our environment. And that's what they did back then. Clearly, you see that in the work that you're
yeah.
doing, you know?
Yes, yes. Yeah, you got to be a part of nature, or eventually Mother Nature kind of removes you.
Yeah.
uh, that's like I said, everything changes, and especially if it's not good for nature, like if it's not part of the whole system, it's gonna do something. Mother Nature always kind of takes back everything and
Yeah.
fights back. But yeah, like to keep us uneducated, uh, unhealthy, that's a form of control. We're easier, we're more docile, and so that's just better for them. So it's up to us to kind of wake up. That's kind of what we're doing now. My whole channel is the approach is to try to make it more historical, so it's not all just about conspiracies, and so people just like laugh at you and be like, you crazy,
Hmm.
because a lot of channels, good channels out there, they speak in truth, but they never really show sources and stuff, so people don't really take them serious.
Yeah.
So I kind of like want to do that, even if I have to read books that people consider boring or whatever, and as many times or videos it takes to read a whole book. If there's something in there I think people should know, I'm definitely gonna do it. And so that's what I kind of encourage people to do, like to just research and verify everything, check the footnote, ask for the source, and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing because, we just need it in the world right now. There's this, and I keep talking about this in my, other episodes. I keep talking about how like this veil is sort of being lifted and people are waking up, and knowing your history, I think, is probably the most important, like knowing your history, knowing where you live, like what you're living in, is like, to me, if you don't know those two things, you're just sort of like, what are you doing? Like you're just sort of living to just get by. Um, but to me, like when you know your history, you can connect to your ancestors, you understand that they did live in harmony with nature, and the people that were sort of the rulers over them were not just kings, they were priest kings.
Mhm.
They it was very serious. They took it very seriously, living in harmony with their environment and making sure their people lived in harmony with their environment, you know,
Yeah,
in which is, vastly different from what we're in today. Whereas the people who are sort of ruling over us are doing it to our detriment.
yeah, exactly. We're supposed to think about 7 generations ahead. Not just about ourselves, not about just accumulating fake wealth, growing old and dying. As a higher purpose, and they've distracted us from all that. There is a true wealth, and that's not money, you know. And we'll eventually figure that out. But there's some people stuck in the materialistic world, and they know that, and they feed them, they distract them, and we just gotta try to avoid as much as possible because there's a lot of traps out there and a lot of distractions.
Yeah, it's hard out here, man. It's
Yeah,
hard because it's, you know, you think you're like, you're living and you're like, everything's great, I'm doing, but then you get like caught up because I don't know, something, I don't know, someone you see something on social media and you're like,
yeah,
oh, I want that, or it just pulls you away from like your true path. And yeah, it's
yeah,
hard, So,
definitely. It happens to all of us, and we live in a society, unfortunately, so we have to kind of adapt to it, and it's like being in the Matrix, right? So you got to plug in and plug out.
yeah.
It's like the movie.
Yeah, definitely. I use that analogy a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously it's getting kind of popular because people are now saying like, "Oh, red pilling," and that's a Matrix reference. So it's
Hmm.
it's cool. It's good that more people are kind of waking up to this. And I mean, yeah, who do you feel like most inspired by to like keep kind of at this, or is it just the work in general?
Yeah, the work. I'm actually the people inspire me, like the people that actually like care, that are very appreciative of what I'm showing them. When they say, I would have never known this. A lot of things. When I was lost, I didn't care about history. I never liked reading books, and now so that's kind of what motivates me. And then just my family, my friends, my children. I gotta not just say what I'm telling people. I gotta try to you know, leave them prepared for 7 generations, and
Yeah,
teach them that, you know,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
hopefully, like all of us who are in this community, my followers and anybody doing the YouTube, everybody, your children, and eventually all your generations, they're gonna eventually grow up differently, know things, a little more than us, and it's gonna definitely cause changes because that's the only thing that can happen. If we're living a lie, why would, if everybody wakes up, why would they continue writing false textbooks? Why would they continue teaching false history? So
Yeah,
eventually everything's going to change. It's just a matter of time, hopefully
yeah,
sooner than later.
yeah.
But it's like that because we're not talking conspiracy. We're just talking about true history and a true genealogy. Like you said earlier, genealogy don't lie. And once people start doing that, they'll see.
Yeah. Do you do people's genealogy for them? Is that what you had said?
Yeah, I help out people with their genealogy. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And so I mean there's so many other things that I would love to talk to you about, but we can, maybe I'll have you on, if you'd be interested in coming back on and we can kind of dive deeper into like specific topics. But in the meantime, do you want to let people know like where they can find you and how they can see your work and stuff?
Yeah. Well, if you just type in Kurimeo on YouTube, Kurimeo, you'll find me. Even if you Google it, I'm like the only Kurimeo user in the world, kind of right now, for now. And you'll see my Instagram pop up, my Telegram, everything I'm on. But yeah, YouTube mainly, and you can find me there, and from there you can find me other places.
Awesome. Well, great. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody please check out his work. I have been long time follower of his YouTube channel and yeah, you really do have incredible content and it's just like eye-opening and just makes you think and it just really kind of brings a lot together. So I encourage any single person, no matter what you're doing, thinking, whatever, just please like watch his work and whatever he recommend. But yeah, well, thanks for watching. Thank you for joining me. Please, for the viewer and the listener, please check out my website. It's NicoleBurgessMarsh.com. I have links to my books, links to all of my affiliates and products that I like and recommend, including books and other products. And yeah, thanks again for joining me, Kurimeo, and thanks for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.